Indigo Park is one of many series a part of the mascot horror genre, and while it's not breaking any molds, the earnest nature of its creation and care put into it has me captivated. I want to preface that mascot horror as a trend isn't inherently bad. Every piece of media has a trend people follow. On the negative side, you can have rip-offs and cash cows, braided to follow the trend to make a buck. But on the positive side, you have ideas that either bring new life to the genre, or change how it's viewed. Indigo Park isn't challenging the genre. I would even argue it's cliché at times, and plays most of the tropes straight. But what makes it refreshing is how genuine it feels. This is a game and story made by a team who knows the strengths of the mascot horror genre. I would recommend you check the game out first. It's completely free on Steam, and it's fairly short too. Unfortunately, this game is better the first time when you go in blind, and becomes less effective as you know what to expect. There will be spoilers that can not only ruin any tension, but also the charm the game has. There's two things I've kept in mind while analyzing this game. One, the game is free, and two, even while it's called Chapter 1, it's closer to a pilot episode than anything else. While I don't think this should make the game immune from criticism, it does change what flaws I think should be addressed. Right off the bat, the game has personality, with most of this charm coming from Rambly,
Ooh, I can't wait for you to see everything Indigo Park has to offer!
a highlight of the entire experience, and where most of the game's humor comes from too.
Wow, was that a limited edition gold Rambly plush? Parents were fighting tooth and nail for those things when they came out. Seriously, our employees had to clean up so many stray teeth and nails.
He has a shockingly well-rounded personality this early on in the story, with his own interests, likes, dislikes, and flaws. I also like that even while we're obviously supposed to not trust him entirely, he's suspicious, blatantly lies, and there's things to show he might not be as innocent as he appears. There's nothing to indicate we should entirely distrust him either, as we don't have full context for what's going on, and there's nothing to indicate his personality or concern for the player isn't genuine right now. Another thing that's clever about his character is his digital nature. If there's not a screen or speaker nearby, or he's glitched out, he's put in a situation where he can't support the player without needing to outright get rid of him. But when he is around, he provides some warmth in an otherwise cold environment.
Not agree to people!
Hi, Rambly.
Why the long face and body?
Indigo Park strikes a balance between unsettling to walk around in its current state, but you can also imagine what it might look like in its prime. The whole thing with Indigo Park is that it's supposed to remind you of Disney, from the video in the beginning playing homage to Walt Disney, to the park having its own version of the mouse ears. There's even the Indigo Channel, an obvious play on the Disney Channel. A major positive for the world building is the work done to make it believable that this place existed and would have been a popular tourist destination. There's also things to discover to show this park had a history, plus supplemental material outside of the game that does a good job of making Indigo Park even more believable as this beloved family media and entertainment conglomerate before the park shut down. While there are optional collectibles that reward exploration, the whole park is worth exploring regardless. It's a well-made set piece with thought put into the details. The gameplay, on the other hand, is rather bland at times. It can be summed up as, go somewhere and be met with a roadblock,
Oops! Looks like Jetstream Junction's being tuned up!
go somewhere else to get the thing to bypass that roadblock, go back where you initially stopped and continue, rinse and repeat. There are these gears you sometimes need to find to fix these generators to progress, but it's essentially just pushing a button with an extra step. There's no challenge to get these gears, nor are they even hidden. It can feel patronizing with how simple it is. I think the older Resident Evil or Silent Hill approach would be perfect for a game like this, where you need to look around, find clues, and solve environmental puzzles to move on, potentially while you're in danger too. There's actually quite a bit that can be done with the gears and generators, and not just in how you get the gears, but also how you interact with the generators that have potential for some mentally stimulating gameplay. Now, credit where it's due, this is only the introduction and tutorial. I do understand that focus was probably on getting the player introduced to the basic controls, understanding exploration, how the generators work, and setting up the plot and setting first. And there is a puzzle near the end that's simple, but rewards the player for being observant, and as a bonus, it's randomly generated, so you can't cheese it. Aside from the park state forcing you to adapt in some ways, during this adventure you also encounter various monsters. Now design-wise, I don't find them scary at all. But that's also a good thing. Because of what role they apparently played when the park was in operation, they were part of the entertainment for guests in the park, or at least that was planned before things went wrong. These monsters, as rare as it is, need to be endearing in some way, otherwise they would feel out of place in the story. Plus, design is a rather small part in making a monster scary. It's all part of how they're utilized and the atmosphere they appear in, and I think this game was mostly effective in how it handled this. During a section of the game, you ride this train that introduces the cast of the park, and at the end, you get to see photos of your ride. In the background, one of these photos you can see is an image of Molly running after the train. Here's what I love. Molly was actually stalking you that entire time you were on the train, and you're able to spot her multiple times if you know where to look. It's just usually in tandem with the character introductions, where the player will likely have their camera focus on Rambly or one of the cutouts. So in a first playthrough, a player would likely miss, or at most only have a glimpse of her. It's subtle, but I like that it takes the player's control of the camera and what they choose to see against them, punishing, for lack of a better term, curious players who look where they shouldn't, by giving them something unsettling to discover. It can even take a player off guard when replaying, as most of the other scares are telegraphed.
Hey there, Lloyd.
Lloyd's section is the opposite of Molly's, where it can be effective horror the first time around, playing with audio cues to make the player believe they're in danger, and having an effective jump scare. That very quickly and sneakily gives player back control before the animation can finish, which, if they wait, a player would see that Lloyd was blocked by some crates and unable to chase the player. But because the player can run away before seeing that, they can also assume they're in danger and run like a chicken with his head cut off, with all the horror coming from their own imagination and assumption what's happening. It's less effective on sequential playthroughs as you know what to expect, but at least the area has some neat things to discover. Near the end, when Molly's active and trying to kill the player, is where things fall short. Now I like the concept. After merely stalking the player and being built up for most of the game, she finally attacks, making for an exhilarating climax as she chases you. The problem is that the chase section is trial and error near the start. It turns the experience from tense and nerve-wracking to frustrating. I understand what they're going for. The stress of picking where to go while this monster is chasing you is effective in making the situation stressful. It's just that trial and error isn't usually good game design. Dying because you took a left instead of a right isn't the same as dying because you were careless. Either this section needs to be purely linear, or if it's going to have dead ends with Molly being right there, the player should at least be given fair time to react and change course. That's all I have to say for gameplay. Onto the story. The story so far is pretty straightforward. Some time ago, an incident caused the park to suddenly be abandoned. Years later, an urban explorer named Ed visits the remains of the park, where at the entrance they meet Rambly.
Hi there, and welcome to Indigo Park!
Who tries to show off the park and be a good host despite the state of things. After Ed has a near-death experience in Molly's landing pad, culminating in Molly helping Ed get a new job.
Hold on, this one's staff only. Come on in, new staff!
Then doing a wonderful impression of Mary Donette, but unfortunately she's a method actor, and that traumatized Ed. Seeing that he can't put a positive spin on this, Rambly stops acting naive and admits he knows the park's in shambles.
Welcome to the Rambly's Wranglers registered room. Here we have plenty of amenities and... Okay.
He then asks for Ed's help in fixing the park.
Would you be willing to help me restore the park? I can see in your facial tracking data that you aren't opposed to this. Ooh, I'm so excited! Let's get this place back in business!
Under Rambly's instructions, Ed makes their way to Ocean Odyssey, which is where Chapter 2 will start and continue the story. But not before Rambly sings a cute little song.
Indigo Park, more than my remarks are mysteries, even I don't know what we might find.
There is more to the story, but it isn't needed to understand the basic plot. First off, I like that instead of the game just opening with no explanation or being vague about things, we're given some insight into Indigo Park, along with our main character's history with it. Or even given a reason for them to be visiting its remains in the first place. They're an urban explorer who visits abandoned places on the regular, and the reasoning for visiting is just felt like it. Not, I have to solve what happened here, or I was an old employee who skipped their life, but something has called me back. Nah, Ed is just some random nobody whose only connection to Indigo Park is that they visited the park when they were a kid. and has now been swept up into this whole mess because they picked the wrong place to break in. And I do like the detail that Molly doesn't appear until after they're trapped and forced to go deeper into the park because of a cave-in. It does help explain why they don't just leave, especially after being attacked by Lloyd, because well, they can't. But aside from just trying to find a way to escape or call for help, there is another reason for the protagonist to continue exploring the park. Near the end, they agree, or more accurately, they don't say no, to helping Rambly fix the park. Likely, the protagonist will be trapped in the park this whole story, and helping Rambly near the beginning was a means to hopefully find a way out. But I can see as the story progresses and they bond with Rambly and potentially the other mascots, the goal to fix the park will go from means to an end to becoming a sincere goal for them. And I like that while they are silent, they aren't devoid of personality. Flavor text for items does reveal more about them, which alongside Rambly having his own comics collectibles, does help flesh out the characters more. Indigo Park isn't perfect, but I do see the potential it has, and as of this script's creation, Chapter 2 had its teaser trailer released. While there isn't any gameplay footage shown yet, the visuals and set design alone showed an improvement for Chapter 1 in that department. I'm looking forward to how the series will progress.